Please welcome Chief Executive Officer and Founder, CrowdStrike, George Kurtz.
Great to be here at RSAC 2025. Too many years here. Glad I still have red hair, not gray hair, but I wanted to jump into the presentation and talk a little bit about one of my favorite topics, AI. No, this is not another AI talk, I promise. I actually was asked to do this and said, what are we going to talk about? And rather than talk about yet another AI piece, which I love, I wanted to talk about something that was really relevant to me and something I get questioned on all the time from CISOs. How do I get a seat at the board table? So that's really the purpose of this talk. I wanted to give back to the community a bit, and I wanted to give it from the lens of a CEO, public company CEO, rather than a security expert, just because it's so topical. And it's the people in this room who are really going to redefine security in the future, and having a seat at the board table is going to be critical. So let's look at the top 3 board risks. Number 1, economic uncertainty. Number 2, there it is, cybersecurity and data protection. And number 3, regulatory and political risk. And in this day and age, in 2025, this sounds like a pretty good list in a pretty good order. But I got it from ChatGPT. So as we all know, it must be right. No hallucinations here. And I think, of course, we all know cybersecurity risk is going to be critical. So let's talk a little bit about the 1990s and sort of the evolution of cybersecurity. I remember 1990s. When I got into security, I was working, it wasn't quite out of a boiler room, but it was a broom closet, and I was doing dial-up pen testing with a 1200 baud modem. And it radically changed over the next couple years. In 2000, security became a lot more popular. Remember the term for some of the folks who've been around a bit, APTs, Operation Aurora, things of that nature. It really put cybersecurity on the map. And in 2025 plus, it is absolutely a boardroom issue. So, what does that mean? Every board now needs a CISO. Not on their company, on their board. And in the next decade, every public company will have a CISO on their board, or they wish they would have. And this is not really a prediction, this is actually a call to action to everyone in this room. So, the question is, will it be you? Cyber risk is now the defining business risk for every board. And when the risks change, so does the boardroom composition. So if you look at the boardroom composition over time, you can see this shift driven by the market. And we're in the middle of one of the biggest shifts that I've seen in the boardroom. But it's important to take a trip back in time to understand what it means for a CISO to join a board and how this evolution actually takes place. So boards of the past. 50 years ago, board seats were filled by insiders. They had backgrounds in financial, legal, and manufacturing. They were friends of the CEO. And there were very few audit committees with no real risk oversight. Corporate governance as we know it today largely didn't exist. And it wasn't until decades later, through scandals and regulation, that boards were truly expected to lead. Do we remember these names? WorldCom, Enron, Tyco? Like, we should, right? Because in the early 2000s, these scandals broke the trust of the financial community. And they created the legal necessity for boards to operate in a different manner. And boards had to react. And so did the government. And in 2002, Sarbanes-Oxley was passed. I think a lot of folks in security who deal with controls and deal with some of the regulatory requirements have a pretty good feel for what this means. But this act in 2002 drove a shift in the board composition and changed the arc of the CFO. So let's look at this. The modern audit committee as we know it today was actually born in 2002. It wasn't that long ago. 1940, that New York Stock Exchange recommended an audit committee, but it wasn't mandatory. It wasn't mandatory until 1972. Again, not that long ago. But the big defining moment was in 1999, something called the Blue Ribbon Committee. It was a bunch of experts that came together that said, how can we create stronger financial controls in the market? They codified those, and in 2002, Sarbanes-Oxley became law. So today, global CFOs hold board positions, 50% of them. Now, that's over the last 20 years, and the number in the US is around 40%. But if you look at any audit committee, more than 2/3 have CFOs on their audit committee. Now, this may sound routine, this may sound obvious, but this is giving us the blueprint of why I believe a CISO will take their seat at the board table. It was Sarbanes-Oxley that was the defining regulation that actually created this shift from CFO to now CISO. We're in the middle of a shift because breach-driven regulation is accelerating CISOs stepping up to the board table. I like to say threats drive regulation and regulation drives change. This inflection point in 2025, actually, this breach notification came out in 23 and 24, but the level of scrutiny that we're all operating under is immense, and lawmakers have taken notice of security. These SEC regulations, in my mind, have materially changed the arc of the CISO's career. And cyber is no longer a compliance suggestion, it's really a governance mandate. The landscape is going to continue to shift like it did for financial risk. And this is the reason why cybersecurity expertise is so relevant in boards today. If we look at the average market cap loss for any security breach of a public company, it's $5.4 billion. So it's not just regulation that's actually driving these sort of changes, right? It's actual dollars. And this is why cybersecurity is showing up on earnings calls and shareholder letters. It's a technical issue and a business event. Obviously, it's a real problem. So let's dive into a little bit more of the stats. 72% of boards seek cybersecurity experience. This is a good stat for everyone in the room. If you're in security, that means there is a seat at the board table. But the more interesting stat is 29% of boards actually have cybersecurity expertise. And really what this means is opportunity for everyone in this room. It means demand outstripped supply. And for me, being a guy who started a company, I love when demand outstrips supply. And I think from a security perspective and a career perspective, it creates tremendous opportunity now and into the future. And I really do believe in the next 10 years, you're going to see a massive increase in CISOs taking their seat at the board table. So the question is always, George, how do I get a board interview? And a board interview isn't just going to come to you. You got to go find it. You got to get yourself an at-bat. And just being great at security is not going to get you an at-bat. So I want to give you the playbook. And I'm going to simplify this. This is a short talk. I can probably go on for hours on this. But the playbook is simple. Number one, up-level your business skills. Number two, speak the board's language. And number three, build your brand. So let's dive into each one of these. Like any job, you have to have the right skills to join a board, and you have to be qualified, and you have to earn your seat at the table. So, to understand cyber risk, you must first understand where business value is created. This is a very famous quote. It's a very famous quote. You may have heard of it, never heard of it, but I needed one for the talk, so I wrote it. So there you go, quoted by me. But in any event, really where I'm going with this is you have to get out of the technical circle and you have to understand what drives a business, what drives a board, and really, really what's important. So, as a board member, this is critical, and you have to shift your mindset from a tech leader. We know the people in this audience are great technologists. We know you're great security leaders. And the board needs that expertise, but they're not just looking for that. They're looking for business leaders. The question is, can you speak and read financial statements? This is critical, right? Do you understand fundamental accounting principles? Are you actually clear on the role of a board versus what a management team is? A board doesn't really run anything. They provide guidance and direction and help with capital, allocation, where things would go, as they support the CEO and others. And do you understand one of the most important things is the committees, right? Do you know what an audit committee does? Have you ever heard of a nom-gov committee, a tech committee, a risk committee? Like, these are critical skills that you're actually going to need if you want to take your seat as a business leader around the board table. So, let the board skills matrix be your guide. This, my friends, might be the most important slide in the entire presentation if you're thinking about getting a seat at the board table. Now, why is this? This actually is something that's required by every public company in their proxy statement. Show of hands, how many people have actually read a proxy statement? Okay, a few, not bad. They're boring, they'll put you to sleep, but there's a ton of information in there, which is why I wanted to call it out. So what this means is, here is your path to getting your board seat. This is what each board member is judged upon. This actually happens to be excerpted from the CrowdStrike proxy statement. Now, we just put board members up there, but these are the skills that we're looking for, and most boards conform to this. 60 to 70% now list cybersecurity expertise or technology expertise as a specific skill. You can see the categories here: technology, cybersecurity, business strategy, finance, leadership, governance, regulatory, and privacy. The more boxes you can check here, the greater the probability of actually getting a board seat. So this was adopted in 2023. I think it was effective in 2024, and it requires this level of disclosure. So if you haven't looked at your own company's proxy statement, it's probably worth a look. And certainly if you're thinking about getting into a board role and you're targeting a specific company, you want to have a look at the proxy. So let the proxy be your guide. The second thing is, I'm going to let you in on a little bit of a secret here. If you want to get a board seat, one of the best ways to do that is to actually find an opening in one of the committees that fits your skill set. I will give you an example. A number of years back, I got called by HPE to be on their board. I was on their board for 3 years, and they called me because they had an opening on the tech committee. That's why they called. They also, somebody I knew was on that board, and they suggested me. And the reason why they wanted me on the board was tech committee needed some expertise in technology and security, and they also wanted someone who was an operator. But it was out of the need of the committee that they actually reached out, and it was actually because I knew someone on the board. And this is going to be important when we talk about building your brand. The key to remember is that boards are constantly changing, and they're constantly adding committee members, changing committee members, and people are coming, going, retiring, et cetera. So in your industry or others, if you understand where the committee openings are, this is going to be one of the best entry points into getting your next board role. Number two, speak the language of the board, right? Do you have the acumen to speak to the board? And one of the most important things, and I wanted to synthesize this into very simple principles. This is what most boards understand. Are there more things? Sure. I'm giving you the simplified version. Time, money, and legal risk. So let's go into each one of these. One of the most important things to any CEO, and I'm giving you this as a CEO and through my lens, is time. How long does something take? How long can we get to market? How long before fill in the blank? Sadly, we only have 24 hours in a day. Each one of us only has 24 hours in a day. And every CEO wants to know how to bend time. So time is one of the scarcest commodities that we have. Number two is money. There isn't a board that doesn't talk about financials. They don't talk about money. They don't talk about margins. Of course, they talk about all these things. They have to. The question then becomes, do you have a view and do you have the expertise and can you carry a conversation around margin enhancements, scaling a business? What's your track record in differentiating yourself from just a tech person to a business person? Have you actually scaled something in your field? Going to be very important. And then legal risk. Look, there's a ton of risks that are out there. I didn't name all of them. You got legal, you've got operational risk, et cetera. But legal and regulatory risk are one of the biggest areas of concern for any board. There's rules around government investigations, class action exposure, all kinds of issues that a board is fighting with. They're sued all the time. And one of the things that is incredibly valuable is being able to translate technical and security risk into legal risk. Trust me on this. If you can be the translator, people are going to want to have you in the room. You need to simplify, not make things more complex. So, the third one is building your brand. This isn't about self-promotion, right? It's not about showing up at every tech conference and giving a talk. It really is about building your brand around how people think of you. Do they think of you as just a tech person or a security person that walks in the boardroom for 15 minutes and goes through a bunch of gobbledygook? Or are you the person who gives your presentation to the board and then says, hey, I'd like to stay for the rest of it. I'd like to stay for the committees. I'd like to be a fly on the wall. This is really important because it's going to give you greater exposure to your board members, and it's going to give you a cadence of how the board operates and the language that they actually talk. And more importantly, it's going to expose you to other board members. Keep in mind, these board members are on many other boards that are out there, and they're always looking for someone. We're going to talk a little bit about a case study here in a minute. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and you can hit the QR code here, is the National Association for Corporate Directors. Lots of resources out there. But one of the things that I would recommend is getting your certification. This is going to differentiate you from many others that are out there. It's going to expand your skill set. So they have dedicated certifications around this. And also spend some time. Go to some of these events, join this, speak at it if you can. And the best way to get your next board role is to mingle with board members. Guess what? They all happen to show up at NACD. All right, so let me give you a case study, a couple case studies. Adam Zoller happens to be the CrowdStrike CISO. He is also on the board of directors of Advent Health, $20 billion in revenue company, 100,000 employees. So how did he get it? Well, he's got a master's in IT management, and he learned how to operate and talk in the language of a board. He became fluent in financial matters. He built his brand. He just didn't sit around for 15 minutes and give his talk and leave. He actually stayed in the boardroom. He got to know other board members. And guess what? When one of the other healthcare providers had a security incident, they said, we need to up-level our skills in security. Remember that 29%? They were adding to it. They had a demand. They didn't have the resource. They called him in. They gave him the interview, and he got the job. But he was hanging around the hoop, and they knew him as someone more than just a security person. The next person I want to highlight, many of you may have known, is Phil Venables. He's a former CISO of Goldman Sachs. He was also on the board of the Goldman Sachs Bank. And I reached out to him, and I said, hey, what were your keys to success in joining the board? He was on a few boards. He said boards were really interested in a few things in his background. IT skills, cloud, AI, risk management, certainly cybersecurity and compliance, privacy, national security, fintech, and leading large organizations. So if you have a large organization and you're a demonstrated leader with some level of P&L responsibility or management, that's a good thing. But I'm going to give you the most important line that he gave me. It's never just about security. It's about the broader strategic value an executive can bring. Very important lesson here. So I'm going to give you your homework. Number one, look in the mirror. You got to look in the mirror and be brutally honest. If you don't have the skills in an area, the question is, what are you going to do to actually get them? Number two, boardroom fluency. Do you know the difference between a debit, a credit, an expense, ARR, revenue, ACV, all these sort of things? very important to learn the language of the board. And number 3, network with other board members. If you want to get a seat at the table, you got to hang around the hoop, you got to demonstrate value, and like any job, and I can tell you this happens time and time again, someone has a need on the board and they just go around the board table and say, hey, we need somebody on a tech committee, we need somebody with cybersecurity experience. Who do you know? You want to be top of mind. That's how these positions get filled. So, in summary, the CISO must become a boardroom leader, right? Think about all the crises that you've gone through. Think about how you manage risk. Think about sort of the processes and understanding technology. It's an absolute critical skill for the future. I know what it takes. I've built companies, I've scaled companies, I've worked through crisis, and if you're already leading under pressure, I think it's the perfect opportunity for the next step in your career. So your time is now. The board level risk is a major issue around cybersecurity. Most of you have the experience, and the boardroom is not waiting for permission, right? They're waiting for somebody to step up to the plate and grab their next board seat. The question is, will it be you at the board table? I hope it is, and I hope to come back here in 10 years, hopefully with red hair, not gray hair, and be able to say, we've gone to 50% like the CFOs. So thank you, RSA, for all of your time. I told you I wouldn't talk about AI, but you can always come down to the CrowdStrike booth. I'll be happy to talk to you down there, or our team will. And it's been a fantastic conference so far. We're just getting started. I wish you the best of luck. Stay secure, and we'll see you next year. Thank you so much.